Hello all, hope you are doing well. In the last video, we have seen some of the important clauses in section 5 of IS 456-2000 which were related to the limit state method. And in this video, we are going to see the annexure B which is related to the clauses of working stress method. Okay, so now basically there are three types of design philosophies in RCC. They are, first one, working stress method. Second one, ultimate load method, and third one, limit state method. Okay, so now among these three methods, IS 456 is mostly recommending the limit state method. Okay, IS 456 is mostly recommending the limit state method, and it is also recommending working stress method in few conditions. Okay, in few cases it is also recommending the working stress method. Whereas this ultimate load method is completely ignored by the IS 456 because it has its own demerits. Then what is the difference between working stress and limit state method is, suppose now if you consider a beam like this, okay, if you consider a beam like this, then let us say a load of 20 kilonewton per meter is applied on the beam. Okay, let us say a load of 20 kilonewton per meter is applied on the load. Now, in the working stress method, we will design the structure by considering the same amount of the load. Okay, we will design the structure by considering the same amount of the load. Okay, then if you take the limit state method, suppose if this is the beam, okay, now if the load is 20 kilonewton per meter, okay, so here what is the actual load? Actual load is 20 kilonewton per meter. And what is the design load? 20 kilonewton per meter only. But now if you take the limit state method, let us say actual load is 20 kilonewton per meter. Okay, then whatever the design load is there, that will be greater than 20 kilonewton per meter, and that design load is calculated by considering the factor of safety. Okay, it depends on what? It depends on the factor of safety. So the thing you have to understand is, in the working stress method, structure is designed for the actual load or working load which will be there on the structure. But in the limit state method, we will apply a factor of safety and we will design it for the higher load. Okay, so that's the basic difference. Another difference between working stress method and limit state method is, in case of the working stress method, the maximum stresses for which a material can be subjected is called as permissible stresses. Okay, in the working stress method, the maximum stresses for which a structure, which a material can be subjected is called as permissible stresses. And in the limit state method, the maximum stress for which the material is subjected to is called as design strength. It is called as design strength. So whatever the design strength and permissible stresses are there, they are calculated using some factor of safeties. They are calculated using some factor of safeties. So let us see the assumptions of the working stress method. So totally there are 4 assumptions. And remember that working stress method is based on the elastic theory. Okay, based on the elastic theory. Elastic theory in the sense, whatever the loads are applied here, they are applied within the elastic limit. Okay, within the elastic limit. Now, if you see the first assumption, at any cross section, plane section before bending remain plane after bending. Already this assumption we have discussed in the previous videos. So as per this assumption, whatever the strain variation is there, that will be linear in nature. Okay, that means if you see the strain diagram, suppose this is the cross section here. Okay, this is the cross section here. Then strain varies linearly like this based on this assumption. But remember that based on this assumption, stress need not be varies linearly. Okay, so as per this assumption, what varies linearly? Only the strain. Then the second assumption is all tensile stresses are taken up by reinforcement and none by concrete except as otherwise specifically permitted. So now consider a beam section like this, and here we are keeping the steel like this. Now in RCC there are 2 types of sections. First one is the uncracked section and second one is the cracked section. Okay, first one is the uncracked section, second one is the cracked section. So now when it is uncracked section means there are no cracks in there are no tensile cracks in the concrete. Whenever there are no tensile cracks, whatever the stresses are there, whatever the tensile stresses are there, they are taken by both concrete and steel. Okay, suppose this is the stress diagram here. Okay, so whatever the tensile stresses are there here, they are taken by both concrete and steel. Whereas if you see the cracked section, okay, cracked section means already concrete has cracked in the tensile zone. Once if it cracks, it will not carry any tensile stresses. Okay, once if it cracks, it will not carry any tensile stresses. Instead, whatever the steel is there here, okay, whatever the steel is there here, so only that will carry the tensile stresses. Okay, only steel will carry the tensile stresses. So in case of the cracked section, only steel will carry the tensile stresses. In case of the uncracked section, both concrete and steel carries the tensile stresses. Now the point is, all tensile stresses are taken up by reinforcement and none by concrete except as otherwise specifically permitted. So what is that specifically permitted condition is uncracked condition. Okay, so if it is the uncracked condition, then it will be taken by concrete also. But unless it is mentioned as uncracked section, you have to assume that only reinforcement carries the tensile stresses. And one more point is in RCC. Okay, in RCC we always design the cracked section only. We always design the cracked section only because they are economical in nature and steel is very effective in carrying the tensile stresses. Okay, so that's the second assumption here. And the third assumption is the stress strain relationship of steel and concrete under working loads is a straight line. So here while discussing the first point, I told that whatever the working stress method is there, that is based on the elastic theory. That means loads are applied within the elastic limit. Okay, so now when the loads are applied within the elastic limit, the point will be stress is always directly proportional to strain. The stress is always directly proportional to strain. Now in the first assumption, I told that strain varies linearly, and here I am saying that stress is directly proportional to strain. So in the working stress method, stress also varies linearly. Okay, stress also varies linearly. Okay, that's the third assumption. Okay, and the last assumption is the modular ratio M has the value of 280 by 3 sigma CBC. If you see in the strength of materials, okay, if you see in the strength of materials, the formula for the modular ratio is Young's modulus of the stronger materials divided by Young's modulus of the weaker material. Okay, now in case of RCC, what is the stronger material? Steel. So you can take like E steel by E concrete. So this has to be the actual formula of the modular ratio. But in the working stress method, the formula given is M equal to 280 by 3 sigma CBC. Okay, so for the formula given in the working stress method, that consider the long-term effect such as creep partially. So remember that the formula of M equal to 280 by 3 sigma CBC, that formula is given by considering the partial effect of the creep. So these are the 4 assumptions of the working stress method. So next one is table number 21, which is the permissible stress in concrete. Now in working stress method, I told that the materials are always subjected to a stresses less than the permissible stresses of the material. So now the permissible stresses in bending compression are different and direct compression are different. The member is subjected to bending compression. The member subjected to bending compression is beam. The member subjected to direct compression is column. Okay, so while designing the beams or slabs, these are the permissible stresses in concrete we have to use, and while designing the columns, these are the permissible stresses in concrete we have to use. Okay, then whatever the factor of safety is there, that is almost 3 here and that is almost 4 here. Okay, so just the strength of the material divided by 3, that will give you these values, and if they are not rounded off to 0.5, you have to take the nearest value. Okay, you have to take the nearest value. Okay, then whatever the direct compression is there, for that factor of safety is 4, so you have to take like grade of the concrete divided by 4, that will give you the permissible stresses in the direct compression. Okay, then these are not that important, so you don't need to remember them. Whatever the permissible bond stress is given here, they are for plain bars in tension. But if you are using, okay, if you are using them in the compression, these values has to be increased by 25%. So whatever the value is given here, if you are using if you are using the bond, if you are using the bars in the compression zone, then you have to increase them by how much percentage? 25 percentage. Okay, then the next one is related to the permissible stresses in the steel reinforcement. Okay, so here basically we use two types of bars mainly. One is the mild steel bars and another one is the HOST bars. Okay, so here this is related to the Fe415 and this is what mild steel bar means, Fe250, and you don't need to remember anything about this medium tensile steel. Now if you take the tension, okay, if you take the stresses, if you take the permissible stresses in the tension, it depends on the bar diameter. Okay, it depends on the bar diameter. For bar diameter up to and including 20 mm, permissible stresses is 140, and over 20 mm it is 130. Suppose if it is Fe415, then irrespective of the bar diameter, the permissible stresses in tension is taken as 230 Newton per mm square. Okay, then if you see the bars in the if you see the bars in the columns, okay, if you see the bars in the columns, that means they are subjected to what? Direct compression. They are subjected to direct compression. So in that case, permissible stresses in Fe250 is 130, whereas in Fe415 is only 190. Okay, in Fe415 is only 190. Next one is compression in bars in a beam or slab. That means if the bars are in bending compression, if the bars are in bending compression, then permissible stresses are taken like 1.5 times the modular ratio or sigma SC, whichever is lower, the calculated compressive stress in the surrounding concrete. Let us say calculated compressive stresses in the surrounding concrete is sigma C. Sigma C. So sigma C into 1.5 into M or sigma SC, whichever is lower we have to take. So lower of these two values taken as permissible stresses if the steel bars are there in the bending compression. Okay, then suppose if the compressive resistance of concrete is not taken into account. Okay, so here in this one we are considering the compressive strength of concrete into the account. But if you are not considering that compressive strength of concrete also, usually we ignore the tensile strength only, but here we are ignoring the compressive strength also. So in that case, if the bars are of diameter up to 20 mm, the permissible stresses is 140. If it is over 20 mm, then permissible stresses is 130. Okay, same as the bars in tension only. Okay, then in case of the Fe415, it is not more than 190. Okay, just like this columns only. Like this, you have to consider permissible stresses in both concrete and steel. Now, instead of using Fe415 bars, okay, instead of using Fe415 bars, if you use the Fe500 bars in the direct tension and flexural tension, okay, direct tension and flexural tension, then this value has to be 0.55 Fi. Simply that means 0.55 into 500 we have to take. Okay, that is how much? 275. Okay, so if you are using the Fe415 bars either in direct compression or bending compression, the value will be how much? 0.55 Fi. Next clause is clause B2.1.1. So this clause says that where stresses due to wind, temperature and shrinkage effect are combined with those due to dead, live and impact load, the stresses specified in table number 21 may be exceeded up to a limit of 33.33%. Wind and seismic forces need not be considered as acting simultaneously. So here we have to remember a point that whatever the stresses given here, okay, whatever the stresses given, permissible stresses given here, they are applicable when you are considering only dead load, live load and impact load together. But beyond that, if you are using the wind, temperature and shrinkage effects for the design of the structures, then whatever the permissible stresses given here, they can be increased by 33.33%. Then it is also saying that the wind and seismic forces need not be considered as acting simultaneously. Okay, the probability of occurring both wind and seismic forces simultaneously is very rare, very rare. So the IS code says that you need not consider them simultaneously. You have to consider only maximum of those two values. Okay, so this is about the important clauses in the working stress method, that is the annexure B. In the next video we will see the important clauses in the remaining annexures. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you like our video, please share it to your friends and please subscribe to our YouTube and Telegram channel. The link were given in the description. Thank you.